Want to know why? Ask how. Howard the Humongous. The standard story in the Western media right now is that Israel has proposed a ceasefire deal that American Secretary of State Anthony Blinken calls extraordinarily generous. And that is true. The Israeli deal proposes to give up over 1,000 Palestinian prisoners, in many cases men who have murdered Israelis, in exchange for only 40 hostages. For each hostage Hamas hands over, Israel will give a day of ceasefire. That ceasefire will last for up to 42 days. But the real story is much bigger. A temporary ceasefire is not what Hamas wants. It wants a permanent ceasefire and the withdrawal of all Israel's troops from Gaza. This sort of settlement would be regarded in the 57 nations of the Islamic world as a massive Hamas victory. Why? In the Islamic world's view, mere survival after an assault on Israel is a triumph. For example, the leader of Hezbollah in Lebanon has gone to war with Israel over and over again. By some estimates, he was defeated almost every time. But he declared every defeat a victory. And his claims of victory were spread all over the 1.9 billion person Islamic world. Meanwhile, the top three leaders of Hamas have grown rich off the backs of the Palestinian people. They are worth a combined $11 billion. So they have flown from their ceasefire negotiations in Cairo back to their luxury homes in Qatar to consider the Israeli offer. But here's where the big picture comes in. Hamas and its allies are not just fighting their war in Gaza. They are fighting the Gaza war in the Western press and in demonstrations on Western streets. And they are fighting this war on the campuses of Columbia University, George Washington University, the University of Texas, the University of Southern California, and over 30 others. Hamas' biggest ally is its sponsor, Iran. Last Friday, one Iranian, Fuad Azadi, a professor at Tehran University, said, "We like what we are seeing on U.S. college campuses. These are our people. They will support Iran in case of confrontation with the U.S. Iran can repeat in America what it did in Lebanon." So what did Iran do in Lebanon? It took over the country, then used that newly acquired nation as a platform for war. Keep in mind that a primary goal of modern Iran's founding father, the Ayatollah Khomeini, was to topple the West, to topple Western civilization, to topple in particular the United States, and to bring it under Sharia law. Sounds absurd, right? But it sounded even more absurd in 633 AD when primitive tribal Muslim fighters attacked one of the biggest empires in history, the Persian Empire. And it sounded even more absurd 21 years later when the Muslims toppled that empire and colonized it. The Muslims then wiped out all of Persia's indigenous religions and made Persians slaves of the Islamic god Allah. They made the Persians Muslims. Today, we call that ancient Persian Empire Iran. And what does this have to do with Hamas and a ceasefire? Everything. Iran finances Hamas. Iran regards Syria, Lebanon's Hezbollah, Yemen's Houthis, Iraq's militias, and Palestinian groups like Islamic Jihad and Hamas as parts of a military alliance that it runs, the military alliance that the Iranians call the Axis of Resistance. And in Iran's eyes, the war in Gaza is a war with the United States. Iran doesn't care that Hamas started the Gaza war with its attack on Israel on October 7th and the torture, rape, and killing of 1,200 Israelis. That, in Iran's eyes, was a magnificent victory, a manifestation of the generosity of Allah, and a turning point in history, a first step toward the defeat of Israel, and more important, a first step in the defeat of America. October 7th was, says the head of Iran's army, quote, unforgettable, stunning, and unprecedented, close quote. Now Iran's leaders regard the pro-Palestinian demonstrations in the streets of Paris, London, and Los Angeles, and the protests on American college campuses as what the founding document of the Muslim Brotherhood in North America called a, quote, grand jihad, eliminating and destroying the Western civilization from within and sabotaging its miserable house by their own hands, close quote. This destroying the Western civilization from within means that Hamas does not have to accept an offer that Anthony Blinken regards as generous. Hamas is winning more and more every day it waits. It is winning on the college campuses of America. Hamas can afford to take its time. This is Howard Bloom speaking to you from the future. It's your job and my job to make. Or, want to know why? Ask how. And now for the sleazy, slimy off button.